Hey everyone, we're glad that you could welcome back to another Tech2Elevate webinar. We're glad that you could make it, whether you're watching live or, you can always check out our YouTube channel, find us, through other ways. All of these will be recorded so you guys can rewatch this if there's something that you missed, something you want to go back through, or if you want to check out any of our past webinars. Again, that's at our YouTube channel, Tech2Elevate with the number 2, where you can find all of our resources through our website, tech2elevate.org, again with the number 2. I'll be your host today, Benjamin Gallegos. And so I'm just going to be here talking you guys through it to make sure that if you guys have questions, our amazing presenter, Sam, can get those questions. He can answer those questions. He's a real expert. So we're both with Tech2Elevate, serving in Western Pennsylvania. I'm serving up in Erie specifically. Sam's serving down in the Beaver County area, and we serve remote as well. And so, Sam really has a knack specifically for not just helping with at Tech2Elevate in our technology assistance, but he's actually currently enrolled in a master's program at Pitt University down in Pittsburgh for public and international affairs, and he's specializing in security, right? So if you guys have questions, definitely feel free to reach out during this presentation. If it hits you later, if there's something you think of later, you can always email us, right? Find us on our website. We're happy to find you and talk to you, however, in person, virtual, whatever works best for you. So Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks very much for the introduction, Benj. My name is Sam Rendon. I'm an ACC AmeriCorps member serving with Tech2Elevate, Beaver County, as Benj mentioned. And I am a graduate student at the University of Pittsburgh, majoring in public and international affairs with a concentration in security and intelligence studies. Benj really hit the nail on the head. So I guess if everyone's ready, we can dive on into it. The topic today is going to be online advertisements, how to recognize them, and how to make some adjustments to kind of tailor how you get tracked online. So we're going to kick the topic off just by talking about a little bit more about what it is and what it isn't, and going into the motivation for the topic specifically. I had an experience with a client where she was just kind of learning to surf the internet for the first time, just wanted to kind of check out what was happening on a news website, Channel 11 News in Pittsburgh, if you know it. And she was so overwhelmed by all of the different pieces of content, some of which were news articles and some of which were advertisements, and couldn't really filter between the two, and it made it not a very good experience for her. So in the service of digital literacy and trying to get more people comfortable being online, the motivation is just one of the pieces is to just know what's real, what's going to be actual content that you're looking for online, and then what's an advertisement and who's trying to sell you something. And the next is that kind of feeling of being overwhelmed, that you build a little bit of an internal filter so you can kind of mentally block out some of the noise that's coming at you from some of these ads. And then also, especially when it comes to targeted advertising, privacy, and kind of how to adjust your settings so that things can be a little bit more how you feel comfortable having them when you're on the internet. And the topic again is ads. And what it's not really, this isn't really going to be a webinar about scams or how to avoid them. Rather, this is going to be a discussion about people who are trying to sell real, if sometimes questionable things. They're trying to get your money through legitimate means rather than trying to scam you out of it. So that going forward, the objectives for this webinar are going to be, first off, we want to be able to identify advertisements and separate them between different types of content. And we also want to kind of evaluate their usefulness to yourself. And this is kind of a big point when talking about this for me, because ads aren't all bad. Sometimes we do see advertisements for things that we didn't think of and that we might actually want and, make our lives a little better. We're going to learn about a few different types of advertisements on the internet, 3 to be specific. We're going to learn about sponsored content, clickbait, and targeted ads. And we're also going to learn where to adjust, engage, and ignore to navigate the internet with some more peace of mind. And in service of that agenda, I'm going to start it off with a little exercise involving a rock. Then we're going to move on to the online advertising landscape, the legal landscape around online advertising, and then those 3 types of ads online, sponsored content, clickbait, targeted ads. And we're going to discuss a little bit of how targeting tracking works. Then we're going to kind of get into what can you do about all this. A few broader information literacy topics in case anyone's interested on picking up some of these other things that are kind of outside the scope of this webinar. Quick Q&A if anyone has any questions. And then we'll have a little bit of our digital coach service schedule and my contact information at the very end. So we'll get it kicked off with the exercise. Let's sell a pet rock. And if you're thinking about selling a pet rock, there might be a few questions you want to ask yourself. You want to think about what language could you use to sell such a pet rock? What would you want to know about a potential customer? And if you were to make an ad, how could you make it eye-catching? So I can just give a couple seconds for everyone to marinate on those questions.
So I think these are some really great questions just to kind of get people thinking about this, and so if you don't have any thoughts now, this is a great thing. Come back to it. If you have any questions, just keep track of them all. We'd be happy to answer them later. So just really, try to engage, stay present, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of got the answer to the third question on here is how could you make an eye-catching ad is, maybe give the guy a little collar, call him Rocky, give him a warm bed. A rock in a fuzzy bed is kind of a strange thing to see, so it catches the eye. Language-wise, you might want to lean into emotions, things like companionship, loyalty, things like that. Practical, busy people don't have time to take care of pets, so a rock is perfect. Fear of missing out, if you maybe say everybody's doing it. Relatability, again, hitting that kind of, this is for busier people. And humor. Clearly, this is not a super serious thing, so kind of being humorous can make it seem more authentic and help the sales pitch come across a little better. Additionally, you might want to know maybe how old they are, if they have any other pets, if they have kids, do they have a sense of humor, they're going to be sort of receptive to this stuff. And if you think this is kind of a silly exercise, it's really just not, because you can buy one of these for $30 on Amazon. And you see they actually do use some of that language, a pet rock to call your very own, getting with some of the emotional things. Very playful, a little bit humorous there. And they lean a little more into the humorous and emotional language here with a true best friend. It's very good at playing dead, things like that. And they also do kind of lead into that practicality. You don't want the upkeep, but your kids want a dog or a cat. And then, this is pretty well reviewed as well. I thought this was a funny thing. Someone was trying to be a stay-at-home pet rock mom, but her husband was not feeling that, so she had to give her baby stone away. So definitely very leaning hard into the humor. And all of this is really to emphasize that there's a lot of language that is being used to make ads get your attention and be something that you would click on. But beyond the exercise, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this. The online advertising landscape. I just grabbed a little screen from when I was surfing the internet, and I'm going to play this little segment here just to kind of show you a pretty normal web page, what you might encounter. Lots of moving pictures, lots of stuff going on here. And that's pretty overwhelming. That was the Weather Channel. So you got tons of moving pictures, Chuck Norris, little cats and stuff like that. You just want to find out what the temperature is outside, and you're completely bombarded with advertisements and things that are really trying to compete for your attention. Why is the internet like this? Well, this is the price that we pay for free information. You have websites selling their webpage space to advertisers looking to make money. And if you were looking at the Weather Channel on TV, they have commercials in between as well, but those things are separated by time. You have your content time and you have your commercial time. On the internet, content time and commercial time are the same. So you have to sift through it all at once and really separate what you're looking for from what people are trying to throw up at you. These types of ads don't really have much to do with you and your device. Again, kind of thinking about a real life newspaper. If Giant Eagle or grocery store or whatever business takes out an ad in the newspaper and two people go pick up that newspaper from two different places, they're going to see the same ad printed in that paper. It's not on your phone. It's not anything that is necessarily tracking you. Some of them might be, but in large part, these ads are going to be universal for anyone who's using the website at that time. And they're just on that page. And that was a concern for my client, is the reason I bring that up, because there was one talking about just Social Security. She was very concerned that she was going to get her Social Security number stolen, but I showed her, I pulled up the same page on my phone. It was the Beaver County Times, and I got the exact same advertisement. So I had to assure her that it was doesn't have anything to do with you. Targeted ads are different. They do have stuff to do with you, but we will get to that a little bit later. While this is all a lot, there are some regulations that do protect you from certain extremely malicious advertising practices. Ads should be truthful and not misleading. They should strictly adhere to privacy laws and regulations around consumer data. They need to disclose any material connections between endorsers and the promoted product. If you have a celebrity who's getting money to promote some product or service, they do have to disclose that, and there is guidance to ensure that ads are recognizable as such. Non-compliance can lead to penalties and reputational damage for companies. That is not perfect. There's just a lot of different advertisers out there, and if you are a very small company, you might not care about reputational damage. You may resort to kind of breaking or sort of bending some of these rules. So it's something that protects us in a lot of ways, but it's not complete. So you still do have to be aware. I'm just going to give a few examples of like what some of that recognizable language looks like from a couple different websites I visited. One, you have the little advertisement logo up here. And that is always a great indication. It could say sponsored content, branded content, ad, something different, but you'll usually see a little tiny piece of text near a piece of content. You'll also usually see these AdSense, the blue logos in the top right corner, the triangle and the X. And that applies across a range of ads. Where you have another little advertisement and then the ad choices logo on the right with the blue triangle. Same here. Blue triangle is a little harder to see, but you still have that tiny advertisement logo on the top. So if you're not sure, always take a look to see if that's there. Now we're going to get into the three types of ads that I wanted to discuss during this session. The first one is sponsored content. This can be a bit of a catch-all term. Sponsored content could just mean any advertisement, but in this case, we're specifically talking about native advertising. Native advertising works by blending in. They're trying to look as much as possible like news articles. So they'll have pictures, stories, real quotes from real people, and an entire news article that you can read that has usually a pretty deep and compelling narrative to it. The difference is there is still a bit of a sales pitch and a bit of a marketing thing going on here, but it usually sits pretty deeply in the background. And it's not going to be entirely clear if somebody's trying to sell you something when you're reading it. The important thing, and why we talk about this, is to recognize, this isn't necessarily bad, but it's to recognize that an article that looks a lot like news might not have been made with journalistic intent. It might have been made by somebody trying to promote a product or service. So we have an example of what that looks like here from the New York Times. This is an article called Grit and Grace, the intense practice and inexorable passion it takes to master ballet by T-Brand Studio. Beneath this, there's a whole long article featuring stories from ballet dancers, shoemakers, all different kinds of people, and it's really well written. But this is a piece of sponsored content, and you can spot that right up at the top here. along this bar. There's 3 different pieces that tell you what's going on here. The first is going to be this paid post. You'll see that that is usually an indicator, and if you're not sure what this means, there's this little question mark here in the New York Times. You can scroll over. Basically see that it was paid for by Cole Haan. Right here on the left is the brand sponsor who's promoting this, and in collaboration with T-Brand, the content studio of New York Times Advertising. The news and editorial staff of the New York Times had no role in this post's creation. So the only place that you're going to find that information is at this tiny lettering here in the top bar. So that is something that you should definitely keep an eye on. Not necessarily bad, probably a pretty good product and a very good story, but it's not made by a news team, even though it's being published by the New York Times.
That's great to know, just because like I know so many times when we're working with clients and different people, when we're trying to find different products or just looking through the internet at all, it can be hard to know if something's sponsored content or not. So it's good to know that like if you put in a little bit of work somewhere, there's typically going to be a sign, something that'll let you know, because that's definitely something that can help a lot of people.
Yeah, and there should be. And I think the thing about sponsored content too is that as long as you have the ability to recognize that it is what it is, it's not bad. They are good stories, and they're usually advertising higher quality products at pretty well-known publications. And those brands all want to, they're concerned about their reputation, so they don't want to put anything of poor quality out there. But it's good to recognize that it's not journalism. That's very different from the second type of ad, which we're going to talk about now. That's clickbait. Clickbait is appealing to emotion and curiosity. And one I didn't put in here, I think is particularly relevant, is it appeals to shock. It is going to try to put something in front of you that is going to shock you, to bait you to click on it. What it does is in the name. It works by a pay-per-click model. I want to say you don't pay, but the advertisers get paid every time, or the people hosting the advertisers get paid every time someone clicks on it. So they don't necessarily care if you buy the latest product that's in it. They just care to get that click. So they're going to do whatever is possible to make you divert for even a second. And that is something you want to watch out for. And again, it's really recognizable as something that appears to be desperately seeking your attention. And I think the thing with clickbait to be aware of is that these are generally, unlike the previous type of content, these are going to be lower quality products and lower quality information associated with them. So in service of that, we're going to go back to the Weather Channel. Weather Channel has this sponsored content section, so you can certainly tell that this is all advertisements, but unlike the sponsored content we talked about in the first section, this is all in the category of clickbait. You can usually recognize it by if you see a moving picture or a GIF. That is a great way to tell that it's clickbait. But also, they're going to try to tell you things to arouse your curiosity, or kind of have some sort of shock value. In this case, we got somebody how to lose weight. We got a cute baby, Chuck Norris with a lemon, a cat, a ghost playing a guitar, and Chuck Norris boxing again while dropping some salmon into a cup of coffee. This is clickbait because it clearly has nothing to do with the weather, and it's all over the place. As for somebody who's been on the internet for a while like me, I have a kind of built-in filter where I just don't even see this stuff. But I can understand that for some people it is hard to deal with all this noise when they're really just trying to figure out what the temperature is going to be on a Tuesday. So let's humor Chuck Norris a little bit. Let's say he reveals these 3 health foods that used to wreak havoc on his ... and see if we can find out what those 3 health foods are. Like, I really want to know that. So let's do it. We clicked on it. We gave him a little money, and it takes us to this page where it doesn't tell us what the 3 health foods are. It tells us that how does he stay healthy and strong. He made a video explaining the 3 internal enemies. I don't know if those are still the health foods, but he adds a few specific foods to his diet, and then there's a 15-minute video. So I think this is really jarring because you're trying to find the weather and you have 15 things vying for your attention, and now they want you to watch a 15-minute video, and they're going to really try to get you to, they don't want to just tell you what the 3 foods are. They want you to watch this whole thing and go through to the next step. So I'm hoping that the intention of this is to tell me what the 3 foods are that, Chuck Norris has rejected per the original clickbait ad. But what I get is this video. And then eventually it takes me to this. So this is what the point of that original clickbait thing was. It was to sell you 3 jars of morning kick for $134.85. It wasn't upfront about that, but this is what the point was. And again, this isn't a scam, but it's just kind of annoying. And I'm not sure exactly what the quality of this product is going to be. It says it does a lot of great stuff. But if you go down to the bottom of the page, you will see something that this has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, and they're not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. I also thought the line next to all individuals are unique was very interesting because it says your results can and will vary. Typically in a prescription drug commercial, you might hear results may vary. This seems to express a lot more certainty around that they don't know what's going to happen when you take this supplement. So the whole point of showing you all these things is to kind of describe how if we humor the clickbait, we end up in a place where we're potentially spending a lot of money and getting a product that is not guaranteed necessarily even by the people that are selling it. So that's clickbait. The final type, and probably the most complex, interesting, useful, and creepy type, is going to be targeted ads. So I'll kind of review quickly what we have so far, and I would really categorize that as a competition for our attention between sponsored content trying to blend in, clickbait just throwing as much shock, emotion, and curiosity at us as we possibly can. And the question for advertisers is, how do you win that competition when there's so much noise? And maybe we can filter out the clickbait. And the answer is, and I'm sure many of us already know this, they find out what we pay attention to. What are we interested in? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's because if we're going to get ads anyway, they might as well be for something that I actually want and I can actually afford and make sense for my life or I was interested in the first place. But it could be seen as an invasion of privacy. So we're going to kind of tease out a few of those things now. But first, I want to give a quick example. In the process of making this webinar and doing the research, I pulled up a City Planner Plays City Skylines 2. It's a video game video on YouTube, and I got a targeted ad to start it out for an ad-free browsing made easy from pi.org/adblock. So I have it realized that I was looking at ads online, and it delivered an ad-free browser to me. And that's really what targeted ads do. They look at what you were looking at, and they figure out what you might want to buy or what you might want to get. And in my case, it did it even in the process of making this webinar. So how does that work? Well, every information request you make on the internet can be tracked. And that includes Google searches, social media usage, websites you visit, accounts you own, and even more. So it's a lot. There's also first-party and third-party tracking, where if you go and buy something on Amazon, and then Amazon tracks you and tries to sell you something else from Amazon, then that's first-party tracking. But it could also be true that Amazon shares your information with not one, but multiple other people who are trying to advertise products or services to you. And that's third-party tracking. And that really expands the potential list of places that might be tracking you. because you might not have even been one of their customers before. The technical ways in which this works is going to be, there's more than four, but these are four big ones. Cookies, device fingerprinting, accounts, and IP address. Cookies are not baked goods in this context. They are little files that a website will generate and stick it on your computer. It will give your computer a cookie. And with that cookie, the website can then recognize your computer by its cookie the next time you visit it. This can make some websites a lot more convenient. Like if you go to Amazon and you fill up your cart with stuff, but you don't sign into an account, you don't save it, and you just close it out, you turn off your computer, you're done. If your computer has a cookie on it, you can log back in and all your stuff in your cart will still be there because the cookie knows what was in your cart. But this is also used to advertise things to you. And nowadays, fortunately, there's a lot of flexibility in which kind of cookies you accept. Some websites do take cookies to run properly and conveniently. And you can also see usually how those cookies are being used. There's also device fingerprinting. So even in the absence of cookies, everyone's device is different. If I pick up Ben's phone, it's going to be unique and different than mine just because the way he has it set up. And there are ways to recognize that. So just the device itself can be tracked even without a cookie on it. Your accounts, of course, if you sign into anything with the email or password, that's going to be something that's going to just, it's got all your information in it already. It's a record, and that record will be tracked and it will be shared. And then your IP address, which has to do with your internet connection and the specific address that is associated with your internet connection. That can also be tracked there. And there's more too. It keeps going. And that's kind of why, if you are somebody who is very uncomfortable with the idea of tracking and you don't want to be tracked, it's going to be a little bit of work to adjust those settings and get everything to where you want it to be. And even then, you probably can't eliminate it completely, but there are ways to reduce it significantly. So going back to those three types of ads, what do you do about all this? The first thing with sponsored content, you got to recognize it. It's important to just do this. It's not necessarily bad, but just to be able to see that this is not journalism. This is an advertisement. With clickbait, I just ignore that. As poor quality products, usually poor quality information that is trying to draw you in with stories that will arouse your shock and curiosity. And it's too much for your brain to process if you're reading it all and you're trying to find the content you're looking for. With targeted ads, I would adjust them to suit your needs, suit your comfort level, and suit the amount of work versus online activity that you want to do. Because as we're going to see on the next slide, it's not super easy to get all of your tracking eliminated, or even a significant portion of it. So when it comes to doing those adjustments and taking control of how ads target you, there are several things that you can do. And I have this kind of divided up into the device level, the account and app level, and the website level. At the device level, we're just adjusting our privacy settings, going on your phone, going in the settings, making sure you have that dialed in to where you want it and that you have what tracking that you want or don't. And there's also location tracking. I think I failed to mention that, but I would check on that as well, especially with a mobile phone. At the account and app level, you're going to have to set these privacy settings for each app or account that you install and have. So if you have a Facebook social media account, you want to opt out of Facebook advertising, they give you that option, but you have to go into your Facebook. And if you have different social media accounts, you'll need to do that for every single one. Browser extensions can give you a little bit more control, and they can block things like device fingerprinting scripts, so you can use those to help kind of avoid the device fingerprinting. Ad blockers help just block the rendering of ads. They do a little bit on the tracking, but they mostly just block as many targeted ads for popping up. However, I do think most clickbait will still appear if that you find that particularly annoying. And you can also opt out via the Digital Advertising Alliance and the Networking Advertising Initiative. These are both advertising industry groups that provide an opt-out option. I've read that there's kind of various levels of feedback on how well this works, and if you can tell how well it's working, but it is an additional option.
And so we've sent some of those resources, some links to that in the chat. If you guys have any questions about that or need that resource outside of this, feel free to reach out to us and we can certainly talk more about that.
Absolutely. And at the website level, I would say review the cookies when asked. Usually when you log into a website for the first time, there'll be a little thing that pops up that says, hey, this website uses cookies. And you can accept them, reject them, you can see how they use them, and they'll provide a description. Or you can just take the required cookies to make the website run well and leave all the optional cookies behind. And again, we're not talking about baked good, we're talking about those little files that track you and your preferences on your computer. So you can really kind of dial that in at every website that you visit. So I think the one takeaway from this for me is that getting that tracking the way you might want it for privacy is not the way that your devices are going to be automatically set up. And I think this is definitely an issue for digital literacy and people who are kind of getting on the internet for the first time, because this part's kind of hard. And I'm overwhelmed by it, the amount of things you'd have to do to really lock down your privacy. But I think if you were committed to it, it would be certainly a fun project to learn about. And there are ways to seriously mitigate the amount of tracking that you experience online. But if you're interested in doing that, there's a really good resource for privacy called Privacy Guides at privacyguides.org. This is a nonprofit that provides information about this exact stuff. And it contains both tools and recommendations. So you can see what they recommend, why, in really kind of plain English language in a way that's supposed to be accessible to everybody. And they recommend different browsers, browser extensions, a lot of those tools that we were talking about in the previous slides in order to kind of get to where you want to be. And I thought that the way it was presented was fantastic. And that link is also available. And if you want any help from us kind of going through and setting that stuff up, do reach out to us as well. And finally, we have just a few other information literacy topics. That's about it on ads. But if anyone's interested in other information literacy topics, there are quite a few that were kind of outside the scope of this particular webinar. Things related to the media, things related to photo manipulation, identifying fake photos, deep fakes, things that might have been manipulated. Even fake videos are a thing now. Echo chambers and filter bubbles are basically where you end up in online spaces, either by yourself in the case of filter bubbles, or with others in the case of echo chambers, where your beliefs are continuously bolstered and reinforced. Fake news is an additional topic, as well as social media influencers and how they make their money, how it works. That one is definitely kind of in the newer pieces of advertising that we didn't talk about, the relationship between endorsers and products. But that is also a good one to go for. And that's about all I have. I do have a little Q&A slide here as well, if anyone has any questions.
That was a great presentation. I saw we just have a couple questions like about, potentially what some of those threats of fake videos, like, for some of our viewers who might not understand, like, what does that mean that now there are kind of fake videos and things like that, in different ways that information can be faked, anything for that kind of bridging the gap between people who may not have heard about some of the latest news.
Yeah. So there's been Photoshop and kind of manual photo manipulation around for a long time. but generative artificial intelligence is now able to create fully rendered videos with the voice of a person and an actual video of them saying something else. It's very common for me to see nowadays. For example, I'm a big football fan, so I'll be watching some press conference where there's a player or a coach up in front speaking to everybody, and the things he's saying are absolutely off the cuff, and the things that the fans are saying, but it's clearly fake because he's cursing, acting unprofessionally, calling everyone else names and stuff like that. But it's plausible, but their voice sounds the same. So there are tools now that would allow you to very easily, if you have a recording of someone's voice, if you have a video of someone already, to generate a video with somebody saying something that they didn't say in real life. I think especially the fake voices are really convincing. You basically you just need enough of the voice to teach the computer what the voice sounds like, and then you can feed it text and have it read it in the voice. And that's how the machine actually is able to learn the specific and very minute patterns of voices, videos and photos as well, but there's a lot there.
I don't know about other questions, but I know for me, like some of the things that I think really stuck with me is that there's a difference in quality of ads and kind of the product and what might the brand associated with those ads. I think that's something that, personally, I'm not necessarily thinking about, and something to keep in mind is that ads have different qualities, and there may be some that you are more willing to accept and might even be beneficial. So that's, great to keep in mind. I think there were a lot of different tips and tricks for people to kind of mitigate this, right? As you said, it sounds like there are options, there are ways to kind of get around some of the things that you want a little bit less, some of the more annoying ads. You just have to kind of put in a little bit of effort and go in and do it on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with clickbait, like there's, Target is not advertising with clickbait ads, or major brands that you go to and have heard of every day. They're not doing that. It's usually smaller brands that are more desperate for attention from advertisers that are desperate for clicks. But again, if you want help setting up any of those kind of privacy features we talked about, we have digital coaches. And this is the Beaver County schedule. I'm sorry, Ben, I forgot Erie. In Erie, they're at Blasco Memorial Library Wednesdays and Thursdays from
2 to 6.
2 to 6.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is our Beaver County schedule. You can meet with us either virtually or in person at any of these locations throughout the week. And if you're interested in setting up some of the privacy features from privacy guides or elsewhere, we are more than happy to help you with that. I didn't cover too much of how to do that because I think that would have been a webinar in and of itself. But if anyone's interested, we could do that for the next one.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. I think this will definitely be a great help. Like we said at the start, if you guys want to go back through this video or anything like that, these will all be up on our YouTube channel as well as past and future webinar recordings. And we're going to start doing a lot more webinars consistently coming up for the next good bit. So definitely stay tuned. And again, like Sam said, we've got a whole bunch of locations. We've got locations in Erie and Beaver, virtual, and you can reach out to us, whatever works best for you, right? If you can get to our email, if you can get to our website, tech2elevate.org, or our emails or anything like that, which are just our names at tech2elevate.org. There's a lot of different ways. There's Sam's email. You can even our social media, right? If you find our Instagram, LinkedIn, anything like that, if you're able to get through all the ads and you can figure it out and find our actual posts, feel free to message us there, and we'd be happy to meet with you and talk to absolutely anything you want to talk about.
Indeed. Thank you very much for watching, y'all.
All right. Well, everyone, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.